Thank you for being here. Can you all hear me okay? My name is Tracy. I am a chaplain at a place called Advocate Children's Hospital. Thank you for being here to remember and honor Draven. I had the deep privilege of getting to spend the last few weeks of Draven's life with him and with Jamie and James. We hadn't met before, but it felt meant to be there with you guys. So grateful to be there and so honored to be here with you all remembering Draven. As we get started, I just want to invite you to take a breath. Just notice yourself. Give yourself space to be present, however you need to be present right now. And take a moment to remember our Draven. His smile, his beautiful eyes, his perseverance, his courage, his dancing, his joy. We're here to remember and celebrate Draven together. We're actually going to start with a reading from the book The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. I believe that Marisol, who is Draven's cousin, is going to come read a portion of that book for us. And with these words from The Giving Tree, we're honoring Draven and blessing him with rest and happiness forever.
The ending of the book says, "I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could. "Well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest." And the boy did.
When we were in the hospital together, Janelle actually brought that book in, and I think I remember, Janelle, you saying that you were at Draven's house and kind of looking for a book to bring, and just felt like that was the right one, and later found out that it was a gift, I think, from Marisol, who couldn't be there in the moment, and so it was this amazing connection of all the many amazing connections that Draven made in his life, another amazing connection. Those words from The Giving Tree, as I hear them, are about an invitation to rest in happiness. And so I'd like to say a prayer along those lines and invite you to join me in that. I know we each come from different backgrounds, different beliefs, and so as you hear this prayer, you're welcome to hear it however it fits for you. A prayer, an ask of the universe, a meditation, an intention. In whatever way is right for you, please join me in spirit. Loving God of many names, we are so grateful for Draven and the gifts that he brought into this world and into our lives. We are so grateful for his love, his joy, his strength, and his courage. We trust that Draven is already both at rest and running free. And yet, God, we ask that you grant Draven the easiest rest, the greatest joy, the freest dancing, and the deepest peace. God, we ask that you grant Draven love everlasting, always. Help all of us gathered here today to feel your reassurance that it is so. And especially be with Jamie and James as they miss their beloved son. And bless them with continued connection to Draven always. Gracious God, grant us your peace as we remember Draven together. Amen. We are going to have some time to share stories, to share memories, to even just share words together as we remember Draven. This is sort of a surprise. You might not have come prepared to share something, but it's an invitation to think about who Draven has been to you. You might consider sharing a story about a moment you shared with Draven, perhaps when you first met Draven, or when you first heard someone else talk about Draven. I hear that he was good at bringing people together, even if you didn't meet him, that he brought you together with other good people. You might share a story that makes you laugh, a story that makes you feel gratitude. You might even just share one word. You could literally come up to this podium and say, amazing, and walk away in honor of Draven. If you have a sense that you want to say something, but it doesn't feel polished or perfect, I encourage you to still come up anyway. And if we end up having silence together instead of lots of talking, that's okay too. Because I know even in that silence, we are remembering Draven together. So I'm going to start with just a few words, and then we're just going to have some open space. And if anyone would like to come forward, just make sure to come up and use the microphone so anyone that's watching on the streaming service can hear you, because this microphone is how they're hearing us. At the end of our time together, we'll have one special reflection about Draven from Janelle as well. So as I shared earlier, I had the privilege of spending the last few weeks of Draven's life with him and with Jamie and James, which is also a privilege. I had not met Draven before. I sure wish I had. And I'm so grateful that I did. As a chaplain, I often sit alongside folks in big questions without clear answers, and I know there were a lot of those in Draven's life, and a lot of those that many of you have surely wrestled with in his life. And I wish I had answers to those. But I know that those questions don't define Draven's life. On the contrary, it seems like, from my best guess, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like Draven's life has been defined by the way he lived forward from those moments and questions. His life has been defined by the impact he had on all of you, and by the love that has always surrounded him. When I met Draven in the hospital, I quickly learned about his strength and his perseverance. I learned that he had fought through so much in his life and lived with such great joy. I learned about his love of swimming in the pool at home. I learned about his love of music and dance parties with Jamie. I learned about his classmates and how he endeared himself to everyone at school, as you can witness from the board setter in the back there from school. I learned about his enjoyment of good food. Even when he wasn't supposed to, he still enjoyed the good food, and that was an important thing. I especially learned about his love of Little Bite muffins. I think most of all, I learned about Draven's deep appreciation for and connection with his family and friends. It seems like Draven found joy in connection, and he made an impact through that same connection, an impact that will be everlasting. When I met Draven in the hospital, I also quickly learned about the love of his family. Jamie and James, you love Draven so well. To see you make decisions for Draven in his final days, I witnessed your incomparable love, your selflessness, and your deep commitment to Draven. Well, I know we're here to celebrate Draven's life. Your love for him is a testament to his life. And it's so important to celebrate too. Your connection to Draven is important to celebrate. That love and connection is worth standing on, resting on, and trusting as true, always, even now. It always has been there and it always will be. Draven inspired that love and connection in all of you, in each of us here. So Draven, even though I didn't get to spend much time with you, buddy, you did so good. You did so good. And you will always be loved. I had the chance to write what I was going to say beforehand, and I know the invitation to invite others didn't really give you that chance, perhaps. So that's okay. You can just speak from your heart. So I'm going to step aside and leave some awkward silence and see what happens. And see if anyone comes and fills the silence. It's a memory, a story, a word. And like I said, if it's just silent, that's okay too. We're remembering Draven together.
Draven was an inspiration to us all. He may not have been able to talk to us, but with a look, or with a smile, or with a side eye, as we like to call it in our family, he conveyed a wealth of information that we never would have expected, or that we never ever would have seen if we didn't actually pay attention to him. Jamie and James spent their life making sure that Draven was always the center. He was the center of all of our lives. They made sure he came to family events. You always made sure that he was there and present. And Draven appreciated that more than either of you know. And we all appreciate how much Draven inspired us to be better and to do better.
Gonna try. Of the many outings we went on with Draven, from zoos to campgrounds to fishing, the most joy I've ever seen on anyone was when Draven was captain of the boat. Always, big smile on his face as the wind blew through his hair and just waves, and it was just a joy to see, and I appreciate being part of all of that with him. So yeah, it's very hard.
You can easily just just focus on what happened to Draven, like, really sucked, but that wasn't his whole story. The fact that he had in his life, everybody around him, if there was ever, an angel that walked among us, it was Draven. He could make his mom mad and his dad, but he's a pure soul, and I don't know what happens outside of this life, but the energy that was Draven, I think, is with us and will always be with us. He will always live in our memories, in our hearts. We love him.
I'm just gonna speak on a couple of memories, on Delilah's behalf. From the day that Delilah was born and she met Draven, it was like an instant connection between them two. She would just walk over, she would always want to stare at him, and she'd walk on her walker and she'd walk over to him, and and then she would have Jamie hold her so she could help push his wheelchair around. And that's all she liked to do, was push him around the kitchen at the house. And I can honestly say, that was her best friend. Draven was her best friend, and she's always cares for Draven and always would ask how he's doing. And but I want to say a little something on my part. Draven, who am I gonna have you know, to help me with Delilah when she's annoying, right? You know, he'd look at me when she'd start with her mouth and everything, and Draven would look at me like, really, Aunt Brandy? Really? You brought her here today? You know, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Draven, I'm gonna bring her home soon, don't worry. You know, but he loved her, and we love him very much, and this is probably like the hardest thing that, you know, that we've had to deal with, but I just know it's not goodbye. He's with us every day, right, Mama? And we love you, Draven. And I love you guys.
Some of you know me, most of you don't. I'm the husband of one of Draven's first child care providers, Pat. She's in the back room. And as soon as Jamie brought her in, Pat and she were discussing whether we could handle her in our home child care center. All he did was wrap his arms around her, and she wrapped around hers, and the decision was made right there. There are 3 people in my life who I know can speak extremely well with their eyes. First in my life was my grandmother. Second is my wife. Both of those are good and bad. The third one is Draven. I never saw anybody besides those other 2 people I mentioned able to speak to me with their eyes. Jamie told us that before he became ill originally, he was pretty mischievous. And there were 2 young boys, brothers, Andrew and Zachary. Andrew's in the upper left-hand corner of that picture posing with Jamie and Draven, just to the left of the desk. Andrew and Zachary were wrestling on the floor. Draven turned and looked at him, and there was a gleam in his eye of mischief, like, I used to do that. And that's one of the things I remember about him. Also, I remember practically every morning for over a couple of years, he and I would have oatmeal together, breakfast. And he enjoyed music. I'm a music person. I do some music production and stuff. That's not important. But I had a little studio in the back of the house, still do. And he would come in and listen to music, and his legs would be jumping around. And then I'm here later on, which I did not have the privilege of seeing, him dancing. And those are the things I remember about Draven and the love that he brought to my wife's home.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I am Jamie's cousin, Draven's cousin. Not everyone here was able to meet Draven when he was younger, less than 2, but I was lucky enough to be there for that. There was a time where first we lived with Aunt Cheryl, and then pretty soon afterwards, Jamie and Draven moved in with Aunt Cheryl, and so we saw each other a lot. And when you just mentioned he was mischievous, he was very mischievous. He would come up all lovey-dovey and then bite your face. His cousin Alex, who's around here, who was very little at the time, Draven would toddle at, was just starting to learn how to walk and run and would chase after Alex. And Alex would go, get him to the dog. And there's a picture, I believe, actually on that same panel of him, or maybe it's over here, where he's actually in action jumping off of the coffee table into Aunt arms. So I did want to share those because I feel like sometimes those things, they're a little bit farther away and a little less immediate than some of our other experiences. But we, the week before he got sick and was in the hospital, he was at our house. The summer before that happened, watched him almost every day. We were buddies. We'd sit and watch Barney. And so we were there in the hospital in those days and weeks afterwards. And his whole life he was a fighter, and his mom was a fighter. And just, you could tell today, just hearing everyone, seeing everyone. I don't know most of you, but we all love Draven very much. So
sure I'm not stopping anybody from coming up. Is there anyone else that wanted to come up? I know even in our silence, all those stories and all those memories are in our hearts and in our minds. We'd like to invite Janelle up. I met Janelle in the hospital. And I suspect Janelle's going to tell us a little bit more about this, but it sounds like Janelle spent an incredible 3 years with Draven as his nurse. Thank you, Tracy. For those who don't know me, my name's Janelle. I was Draven's nurse for a little over 3 years. And for those who do know me, I think many of you might agree that I'm more than just the nurse. I'm a friend, or perhaps even family. I certainly hope to be perceived as a latter, because Draven was like a nephew to me. And I devoted those years to extending the same undying love, care, and support that he received endlessly from his family and friends. And I would do it all over again if I could. When it came to his care, I stood by a single principle that I summarized in the form of a question. How would I want to be cared for? Because Draven had physical limitations and difficulty communicating his needs, I put myself in his shoes. First thing that came to mind was, well, I'd want to know who this person is, especially since they see me in my most vulnerable state. So I made it a priority to talk to Draven every single day, just as his parents did, just as Selma did. Whether it was to talk through the care I was providing him or just to tell him what I did on my day off. And although this may seem a simple task to many of you, in this field of work, it can be quite challenging trying to balance between keeping someone physiologically stable while establishing an interpersonal relationship and maintaining professional boundaries. So a typical day with Draven began with me waking him as gently as I could at 6:45 a.m. And I was often apologetic about it because, let's be honest, no one would want to be startled awake in the early morning hours by some stranger and tossed around not knowing why. So I'd play some of our favorite music. I'd run my fingers through his hair, whisper good morning, maybe tell him about the weird dream I had the night before. I'd say things like, sorry, Dre, but we're going to school today. These are the rules, but they're not my rules, I swear. And then I'd ask him which shirt he'd like to wear for the day. And I'd always insist on dressing in jeans rather than sweatpants. I knew he was listening when his gaze would focus on me, which occurred on most days. I'm thankful for that. So with that principle in mind, I quickly learned and adapted to Draven's little quirks, his various facial expressions, his awesome personality. He learned mine. I'd often joke about how he knew all my deepest, darkest secrets. But we also knew each other's hopes and dreams. All he wanted was to live life to the fullest, surrounded by those he loved, and to always have a place to call home. He achieved that and more. My favorite parts of the day were seeing his warm smile as I helped him walk or get around on a stander. When he'd roll his eyes at me every time I cracked a corny joke or when I was being silly. When I'd hear about his boating adventures and road trips to Michigan. Especially when we read books together. He did enjoy being outside during free time at school, but he loved reading Goosebumps when the weather was cold. I always encouraged and cheered him on. You did an awesome job today, Drave. I'm proud of you, man. Mom and Dad are very proud of you. So pretty much any moment where I could take a break from the data in his chart, like his vitals and his orders, and any moment where I could step away from equipment, like his nebulizer and suction machine, that's when I truly saw who Draven was. A sassy and brazen teenager who hated math, loved rock and roll, and always tuned into the latest gossip, who watched every Marvel movie,
cheered on the White Sox, and floated around in a pool without a care in the world, who shined like a star during PT, OT, and speech therapy sessions at school, who loved his family, his friends, his furry pals unconditionally. These are the moments I cherish the most, and I am grateful to have been able to share these memories with Draven. In fact, these moments are the reason why I became a nurse in the first place. On the day before Thanksgiving, Draven was admitted to Lutheran General for respiratory distress, and I attended his care conference the following week. Then on Monday, December 4th, his mom, Jamie, shared the unfortunate news of his prognosis and the palliative care plan's team for compassionate extubation on Wednesday, 2 days later. This was sudden, and it weighed heavily on my heart. Because for a few weeks before his hospitalization, Draven was very sick. He required continuous oxygen support and monitoring and intervention. Jim and Jamie and I were constantly worried. And any downtime that I did have, the brief instances in which he was stable, was spent on updating his medical chart or resting after being on my feet for a while. We weren't able to do things he enjoyed, like reading a book or standing, because we were both exhausted, and I felt heartbroken about this. So Draven's house is just 10 minutes away. On Tuesday, the next day, I reached out to his parents to see if they'd like me to grab anything from their home on the way to the hospital. I packed him an outfit and other personal items, tidied up his bedroom, grabbed my favorite childhood book from his shelf, and let the dogs out in the yard for a bit before heading over to Lutheran General. When I arrived at his hospital room, Jamie was lying in bed with him, whispering sweet nothings into his ear like she always does. "You want to lie down with him?" she asked me as she got up. And without hesitation, I kicked off my shoes and lied next to him. I held him closely for a while, then told him how my day was and how much I missed him in the past week. I told him I brought a book to read to you. This one's a classic. It was my favorite book as a kid. He opened his eyes and focused his gaze on me, something I'm so thankful for. I couldn't hold back my tears as I read The Giving Tree, the book that I later learned was gifted to him on his 16th birthday earlier this year. Words cannot describe how grateful I am to have shared that moment during one of his final days, where someone else was monitoring the numbers and the machines, and I was able to just spend time with him as his friend, something I couldn't do in the weeks leading up to his hospitalization. I'll cherish that memory forever. For Nurses Week, he gifted me this customized compact mirror, along with a bunch of other stuff. The writing on it perfectly describes how I feel about him. It says, "It's not what we have in life, but who we have in our life that matters. Thank you for being in mine. Love, Draven." Draven taught me patience and gratitude. He showed me how to appreciate the little things in life. I am who I am today because of him. I will honor Draven's legacy by extending the love, strength, and courage he had to those around me, and by continuing to be the best nurse I can be.
Don't know that I can say it any better than you all already have. We do have one more thing to do together, though. We have a special moment to celebrate all of the joy and goodness that Draven brought into our lives. I'm going to do a little explaining, but while I do that, I'm actually going to ask Eric and Jonathan to pass out a snack to you all for this moment. Don't open it yet. I believe that they're in the back, against the back wall in a bag.
His backpack.
His backpack. They are straight from Draven's backpack. So, we are eventually, after I explain why we're doing it, going to listen to a song and eat a snack in honor of Draven. So while Eric and Jonathan pass out those snacks, I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. So one way that we experience joy and goodness is through sunshine. I heard a little bit about the evening that Draven died, that there was the most beautiful sunset. And to me that just made this instant connection between Draven and sunshine in my mind, and a connection that's already been there for a long time through the song You Are My Sunshine. Today, rightfully so, has been a sunny day. A little warmer than we might expect, with blue skies and another beautiful sunset. I'm thinking about that moment when we feel the sun and the warmth on our skin and the goodness that we feel in that moment, and thinking about Draven and how he brought that same goodness into our lives every day. And I believe that that sunshine will always be a reminder of Draven's impact and love in our lives. So we're going to listen to You Are My Sunshine together. We'll hear the version that Draven heard the most, sung by Jasmine Thompson, as this is the version that he shared so many times with Jamie and James, and I imagine many of you. And as we listen to this song about sunshine, we're also going to experience Draven's love through his favorite little white muffin. I know that allergies are a real thing, so only do it if it's safe for you. And if you're not able to, just imagine eating your favorite food. Let yourself feel the joy. I believe that they're chocolate chip, and I heard that that was Draven's favorite type of little bite. So let yourself feel the joy of the chocolate chip muffin. Let yourself imagine the warmth of sun hitting your skin. And remember that Draven's love is with you in this moment and always. Does everybody have their muffins? Oh, thank you. Oh my God. So I believe that our folks at the funeral home are going to play You Are My Sunshine. And let's listen and eat in honor of Draven. never had these before, Draven. You're right, they are so good. I don't think I'll ever forget King Draven's final moments, Jamie singing that song to him. And changing the words perfectly for that. It feels hard to conclude our time together. I just want to be here in the love that Draven's life was filled with, and in the love that always connects us to him. We are at that time to conclude the official part of this, at least. So I want to say thank you for being here and for honoring Draven's impact. Thank you, Jamie James, for having me. At the end of our time together, Jamie and James are going to most likely stay in this area here. You're welcome to come up to the front if you want to greet them again, if you want to say something or say goodbye to Draven again, you're welcome to do that. If it feels like this moment is complete for you, there's no pressure to do that. You can also head home, whatever feels right to you in this moment. Before we go, I'd like to offer a final blessing. And just like I did with our prayer, I want to invite you to receive these words however feels right to you. And thank you again so much for being here. As we leave this place of memory and celebration, may you know that you are always connected to Draven. In the sunshine of a clear day, in the courage that you have within yourself, in the joy of a delicious muffin or an uninhibited dance, and in the love that overcomes every barrier, even death. May that connection be a ray of reassurance and peace always.
That's like being regular clothes. Yeah. Grateful to have you as a I promise.
I know.
Where's mine?
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Así sí. Así la boca de ya que sí trabajo, pero está todo en mi grupo. All you guys do just checking up and my work. Sí.
Oh yeah, one more day. I have one more
They came over on Sunday for the Bears game.
all night. I got it in the car. First thing was there's the line. Very sweet. They really were. I felt okay. Come here, baby.